Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Wowhead Weekly number 110. We have a lot to talk about this week. We constantly are getting new information about 7.2 with the PTR being live, as well as stuff going on live servers. We had the Q&A with Ian Hazakostas today. Tons of stuff to cover. But before we get into all of that, I would love to introduce my wonderful co-host, Wowhead Site Manager Perculia.
Hey everyone, we've had a few busy weeks with the PTR, and it is also Pepe's birthday today.
Yay.
And if you're new to Facebook, you might wonder who Pepe is, but if you've been watching on Twitch all the time, Pepe is an adorable stuffed bird, and he's 4 years old today. And if you're watching in chat, follow what Sass148 says, because you could win your own Pepe at the end of the show.
Yep.
So.
Yep. He is
Happy
also
birthday,
posting under the Wowhead handle on Facebook as well. So if you're not following on Twitch, I believe he's the one who's on the Wowhead, unless that's an imposter. Could be. You never know. But we have a ton of stuff to talk about because we didn't have a show last week, so we've got about 2 weeks worth of information to cover this week, and the 7.2 PTR has not slowed down. Like, I feel like so often when we get PTRs, it's like a big wave, and then there's kind of nothing for like a month, and then a big wave, whereas it has just been relentless.
Yeah, this has been relentless. Yeah, we had all the content, and then they haven't had new content for a week, but they've had all these system updates, like artifacts and legendaries.
Yeah.
So, I think the first thing we should talk about is artifacts, because they got some pretty big updates since last time.
Yeah, and just to like catch anybody up who maybe didn't watch us last week or hasn't been following, like a lot is going on with artifacts in 7.2. All of the 2-point traits are turning into 3-point traits. All of the 3-point traits are 4-point traits. There's like a new utility trait for everyone, a new golden trait for everyone. There is going to be new artifact knowledge levels. The scaling is all different, so it's a lot. And we found out some more stuff about artifacts this week on the PTR, including stuff about those new second traits on relics, because that was the big thing, is that there will be relics that don't just modify one thing, but they modify two things, and we found out a little bit more about those today. Well, not today.
So you have to, this was asked a bit in the Q&A, but there are 2 new ranks of order advancement, which you pour the order hall resources into, and rank 8 means that your relics have 2 traits on them.
Mm-hmm.
And the first trait is the usual one that's like predetermined in advance, but the second trait is totally random with a few restrictions. It can't be the same as the main trait, and will be a throughput relic, throughput trait.
Yeah.
So people are like, oh my god, the RNG. But Ian tried to explain this at the Q&A of saying that, you know, if there was a relic and is previously meh, like this is a way for that relic to have a chance of being better, and there's more variety in acquiring them.
Yeah.
Instead of Blizzard saying, you know, every boss needs to have like 15 relics on the loot table for every single, you know, spec and talent build, now it's like, oh, you know, like the loot is more flexible. There's a chance like it can work for a different build, as opposed to just flooding, you know, like 90% of a boss table is like, you know, relic loot, so everyone is happy.
And
I guess I can say that. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, I see that perspective entirely, but then it also makes me feel like, right now, I feel like relics are already such a hot commodity. Like, when relics drop in raid, like, as someone who's, like, kind of trying to build up their off-spec, it's really difficult, because things like relics and trinkets are still really sought after by people for their main spec, and I just feel like if now you're adding, like, this random element to it, that it's just more people are going to be rolling on it for the chance of getting the better proc on their best in slot relic.
Right. Well, I mean, I think like the loot master should be like, okay, like your relic is really bad, you know, you should get this over the person that it's a small DPS game for. But I can see how, like, you know, suppose a dungeon has relics and everyone's like, oh, I don't want to run the dungeon because the relic doesn't have my, you know, perfect trait. Now people can say, hey, whatever, you know, I'll run the dungeon. Maybe it will proc the RNG on something I like better. So it makes those bad ones more desirable.
And that's definitely a good perspective to look at it from. As the loot master of my raid, I hate having to relegate in that way. Like, I really, I hate having to say, like, you know, oh, could you not roll just because you're trying to get Warforged when somebody else doesn't have 4-piece? Like, and my guild's pretty good about stuff like that. But I also, you know, it gets into this really sticky area where I already feel like it's kind of difficult right now to figure out what is your best in slot without using pawn strings and stuff like that. And now this kind of just adds another layer of complicity. Would that be the right word? And it's funny because I had this talk with someone last night that you know, you always hear about people say that, like, WoW is so easy now. And I just fully, wholeheartedly disagree. I feel like, yes, they have reduced some of the clutter in some places, but in general, I think that it's much more difficult to play an off spec or an off character like an alt than it used to be. It's much more difficult to really understand and master characters than it used to be. I mean, back in Wrath of the Lich King, my mage, for example, had a 2-button rotation. Like, she was super easy to play.
Right.
And even though she had all those extra buttons, it didn't really matter because you could do phenomenally without really having to study that min-maxing and knowing exactly when this proc and that proc. And now I feel like, you know, with things like the trinkets having so many different things on them and relics now having so many different things on them, I feel like it's so easy to be horrible. And I think it's funny that so many people will say that it's been dumbed down when I totally disagree. I feel like they've lasered in on things that are important and then really reinforce.
I feel like you can play like a baseline, like maybe it's more welcoming to play, but if you want to master your class and there's more complexity.
Oh, absolutely.
As opposed to in Wrath being like, oh, like this UI is kind of weird and like, you know, like maybe it was like the barrier to entry is lower, but the skill cap
that's
is higher.
Like almost like it's more intuitive now. Like it's easy to learn, very difficult to master. But I feel like there was a time when I could play 2 or 3 characters and be pretty like competent on all of them. And I feel like the days of that are kind of gone. It's not just me. Like a lot of people don't really want to play off spec or they don't want to play an alt because, you know, it takes so much to really invest and be good at your character. And I appreciate that about the game. This is not a complaint. Let me just make sure I am clear about this. I'm not complaining. I just think it's kind of a funny little nuance that we see a lot in our community when the reality of it is that they're constantly making it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and it's very tailored to that spec and those people who are really, really, really good at it.
Yeah. So this next thing in the notes is kind of related to how maybe people were put off playing alts because they thought they had to grind out a ton of artifact power. And we got information on the new infinite trait, which is called Concordance of the Legion Fall. And instead of there being this, 20-point trait, which, increases your damage and your stamina, this is now a 50-point trait, and it just provides a proc to your primary stat, and the proc does not increase a ton in power per point. It's like you get like 20 more of a stat or something per point. Blizzard is not tuning encounters around people having these points. And the original infinite trait is just being consolidated into 2 ranks.
So the idea is that would be the 3rd gold trait right now, the one that you can just keep dumping and get a 0.5% and a 0.5% and a 0.5%.
Yeah, like the infinite 4th gold trait. So Blizzard is like, we didn't want someone to feel like, if they were a few infinite points behind someone else, they were doing like a significant % amount of damage. Like they were just like flat out worse. They could not do as much damage. So hopefully this should be a way of Blizzard being like, hey, you can go play an alt. When you get artifact power, you can throw it into the infinite trait if you already have a lot, but, don't try to sweat it. Like, they didn't want the power gap to be huge between people that, were playing a ton and people that were, trying to manage a few artifacts or alts, for example. The one thing I will say is that, so last week, Blizzard wrote this blue post on artifact power and some other changes, which we'll get into, but they didn't really talk about the changes for the infinite trait. And I feel that it would have been good to mention it because it just popped up in data mining and people were like, oh my god, a 50-point trait, this is worse than a 20-point trait. What's going on here? So communication could have been better about it, but it's probably better overall that, it is a 50-point trait and it's not like a huge percentage gain as you keep, getting power with it. And also, what you have in the notes, they've, like, the amount of artifact power required for each rank, like, is really high. So, like, I don't think it's, like, humanly possible to max out your artifact if you are playing 24/7 doing Maw of Souls. Like, it's not designed to be finished. So I think they want people to get into the mindset of, like, artifact power is a thing I'm doing, it's a nice side thing I'm getting versus, like, I will, grind out artifact power today.
It's not meant. It's about the journey, not about the destination. Now, there's also been some changes to artifact knowledge and artifact power.
So when we first updated our artifact calculator for 7.2, we gave rough knowledge estimates because there's 15 more levels going from 25 to 40, And a lot of people were like, whoa, this is like way too low. This does not make sense based on the costs. And Blizzard wrote back, was like, yeah, that's actually true. Knowledge is not balanced yet. We'll rebalance it. And now it gives way more artifact power than the last PTR build. So, that's been rebalanced and that's been good. They also clarified that more of the catch-up books are coming. So if you are at knowledge level 40, you can buy the book that goes up to 35 and send it to your alt. And like I just said, like the AP costs for the concordance traits are really high. Like when we got them from the journal, it was like, exponential rank 13, like, millions and billions of artifact power required once you get pretty high. Because there's 101 ranks now between all the old traits getting extra ranks and the infinite and the empowered things. So yeah, I mean, of course, a lot of people are like, how do you expect me to grind out, a million billion artifact power, like, trillion to get this? And, Blizzard was trying to explain that the philosophy behind artifact power has changed. Like we mentioned, it's like the journey, it's about like doing the dungeon or killing the boss, not doing the thing for the power. Yeah. They don't want people doing it primarily for the power. They've recognized that it's felt that way because things like Maw of Souls are really profitable. And they talked about some changes like the weekly Mythic Plus reward would have more of a lucrative reward for more people for, trying to go on higher difficulties versus farming, lower keystones.
Yeah.
Like Nighthold bosses.
That was something they did in 7.1, right? Or 7.15?
The Nighthold bosses rewarded AP, that was a change, but in 7.2, the nerf to Maw of Souls and like the better rewards from the higher tier ones will be coming.
Yeah, thank you
they
so
also
much
said
for
that,
the subscribes and the cheers. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Thank you so much, guys.
Oh, okay, it's okay, yeah. Well, talking about the serious dark artifact power stuff. Yeah, they also said that they wanted the original traits to be infinite, but the way they were set up, it felt like it was a long but doable goal. Mm-hmm. Especially when, people got the impression that, like, hey, Nighthold would be easier if we just got our artifacts filled out, so let's go get our artifacts filled out.
Yeah.
And they wanted to change that mentality and be like, hey, here's the new 50-point trait, and you really can't max this out.
Yeah.
And it's not meant to be as strong as the past infinite trait. And I guess with all these changes, they're hoping that people change how they view artifact power.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's a little too late, but hopefully, we can get more messaging on this, because like a lot of people, I know people like we're burning out, or at the end of Nighthold, they're like, we feel that this is too much to keep going. Like, I'm tired of Maw of Souls. So I don't know. It feels like some blue post would have been better throughout the early part of Legion when, people started going off the rails farming this. It would have been good if, changes could have been made sooner than later, I feel.
Yeah. Oh no, I totally agree. It's like, well, being that it's already 7.2, like, I mean, I think it's safe to say we're a solid halfway through this expansion. Yeah. So to be making some of these like quality of life changes kind of so late into the game, I feel like there are some people, like you said, who have already sort of suffered those consequences, and that's there's not really undoing that. Like, it's what's done is done.
Yeah, and we've had the beta for a while, and like, people back then were like, hey, we'll be grinding artifact power for a while. If we do, 10 runs a day, then we'll max out the artifact in 6 months. And, these are the best ways to do it are, Maw of Souls, because that is 3 bosses. And I feel like, there was this feedback throughout the beta, and it was a really long beta. So,
yeah.
I'm glad they're making some changes now, but I feel that a lot of people were talking about these concerns
a long
way earlier.
Yeah, like when we talked about, it was a couple weeks ago that somebody, it was longer than that, but a little while back, there was somebody who had maxed out his artifact, and we talked about exactly like how much artifact power that took and how many runs of Maw of Souls he did, and
certainly the world first guy.
Yeah, and this was even brought up a while ago. I remember there was a Twitter post that, I don't want to say it went viral, but it got a lot of signal for sure about high-end raiders and feeling very discouraged by the artifact power system, because it felt like if you didn't have 12 hours a day to dump into Mythic Pluses, that you were not going to be able to compete with people who did have that amount of time because, you know, those 0.5%, they add up and, you know.
Right, and the stamina adds up and it's like, oh, I could be really alert and move out of the fire, or, well, I know I'm distracted, I should just, you know, grind stuff for a few hours and have more stamina points, and then if I'm slow with reflexes, I'm not going to be as much of a liability.
Yeah, well, and it just made it so that people's skill wasn't as important, I guess. And I think that it is...
I wish they could just do something like raids where you didn't really... Like, you could just go in there and it would be like Mythic Plus or, you know, challenge modes where maybe like things were preset and it didn't matter and you just sort of did the bosses and the challenge at a preset gear level. And you didn't have to worry about, you know,
that's an interesting thought. Maybe at a mythic
months.
difficulty, the gear wouldn't scale. That's a really interesting thought. Is that, you know, I wouldn't want that for all difficulties, because I feel like for like my raid, like we rated a pretty casual level. We're working our way through heroic right now, and I'm sure we'll get it before ahead of the curve and stuff. We always do, but we're not super serious about it. And as people start to get gear, it obviously is significantly, you know, better than it was when we were struggling through with just our, you know, Trial of Valor, Emerald Nightmare gear. And so I think for your average raider, I feel like it wouldn't be a great idea to have a challenge mode type raid, but like for mythic raiding, maybe that is like a really
there's like
that Blizzard should consider.
Gives tournament realm gear for PvP, you know, challenge modes kind of strip that. It just, I don't know, it just feels that, you know, even Hearthstone is like, oh, you know, you don't have to grind out every single card. There are sets of cards that you get every single year, and you have to build it around those cards.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thought, because it's for sure one of those things where, I mean, and it would have to be really looked at, because you don't want to make it so there's no requirement and people are bringing in their fresh level hundreds and stuff like that. But there is a certain factor of, you know, in competition where how much edge did these people get because they did X number of Mythic Pluses and got, you know, this eye level 900 gear and this gear and that gear, and just stuff that, you know, even the artifact power dump, like just the amount of time invested that could skew who gets world first and who gets world second. It'd be very interesting to have a race that wasn't dependent on play outside of the actual race, outside of the actual raid. So that's a really interesting point that you bring up. And, you know, on the topic of gear, I think another thing that people have really been focused on this expansion is legendaries, because and this was something that people were concerned about right from the get-go. Is this a good idea? Is this something that it's going to be too random and it's going to be unfair? Is it something that people are going to be spending all of their time trying to grind them out? You know, like, how is this going to affect gameplay? And we've seen, you know, I don't think it's any better or worse than previous legendaries. I think it's an interesting concept.
And I would just, like, they're both called legendaries, but I mean, it's a very different system now.
Very different, yeah.
Yeah, it's more like a surprise orange Diablo style thing versus like, this is an epic quest and who will do the quest first, and but yeah, so we learned some things about legendaries with the Q&A and also through data mining. The big change is with bad luck protection. Blizzard acknowledged that it can feel rough when you're changing specs and it feels like it's taking you forever to get legendaries for your off spec. So in 7.2, it's going to work per spec, not for overall class. So like, if you have 4 arcane legendaries and then you want to play Frost and you don't have any Frost legendaries, your bad luck protection is essentially reset for Frost.
Yeah.
There are some caveats, like if you have a legendary which isn't spec specific, like, you know, Sepha's, that counts as like your first legendary for every single spec. But it should make it easier. Like, I mean, it should make it better and easier for you to target.
Well, I think that's a good idea too, like, anyways, because ones. I mean, like, there's so many legendaries that aren't spec specific at all, and like for people who are like looking for something, you know, for their healing set or for their tanking set, I think it's nice to have the, you know, the knowledge that like just because you haven't gotten it yet.
It's also nice to like, you could also like swap things out. Like, you know, suppose you have a legendary that works through all specs. Like if you swap to an off spec, you're like, well, I still have this legendary around and I can still use it for a few things. Or, you know, if you have an AoE legendary and you're doing a fight that's not really great for AoE, you can be like, oh, I'll swap in my, you know, other more generic legendary.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I still have only gotten the 2 legendaries. Like, I have Pride As, which is much better now, so I'm not really complaining about that. And then I have a belt that I I think it's really good for certain circumstances. I'm just never in those circumstances. So I'm still really I really want the new one that came out with 7.15, the Bloodlust one, because I play a shaman. But
yeah.
I think
they also dispelled. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to talk a little bit about how they were handling legendaries in 7.2, because there's a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to they debunked the thing on the Q&A. They said that the follower items that are legendary do not count towards bad luck protection. I know a lot of people were speculating like, oh, maybe they did. And in 7.2, there are crafted legendaries coming, and they're meant to be like middle of the road ones, and they're meant to, crafting isn't super exciting right now as compared to something like alchemy. So you can craft the legendaries and you can, buy and sell them. And they obviously also do not count towards bad luck protection.
Okay, so
but yeah, like you were saying, new stuff is coming.
Yeah, when they were first data mined, though, the crafted legendaries were bind and pickup, correct?
Yeah, it was actually kind of surprised me. I'm like, oh, you're meant to sell them. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Good for the crafter.
Yeah, the whole thing about crafted legendaries is very bizarre to me, because it seems like they're not going to be middle of the road. Like, they better be bad. I don't mean to put that. I mean, they should be the worst ones. The ones that you can easily obtain should be the worst ones. And from what we've seen,
they do take a lot of stuff. Like, you have to kill bosses in raids and farm nether shards for items.
Yeah. But
I think their procs are kind of utility, and they come with prismatic sockets, and they're saying that they, suppose you're a fresh 110 and you're like, no one wants to take me a raid because everyone has, so many legendaries. What do I do? Like, if you want to drop a lot of gold on a crafted legendary, go ahead.
Yeah.
They don't have any specific procs that they don't really deal with talents. They're just like, oh, this is movement speed or something generic, because they work, there's a cloth one and a leather one. It's not like the mage and the priest and warlock one.
Yeah.
But yeah, I see why Blizzard wanted to add something, because, alchemy's always in demand, or, inscription is always in demand. But
inscription is not in demand. Those are lies you're telling.
It's more in demand than I made some 815 Obliterum gear.
I don't know. I feel like in general, because they wanted to really scale back on how many things that you need to buy their consumable and enhancements.
Well, the tomes of the Clear Mind. That was
nobody buys them. People just have the one person in their guild make them for everybody. I'm that person. And I can't
nobody
sell
needs
them.
to make the one crappy blacksmithing gear.
Yeah, I hear you, the other profession, but alchemy makes so much money. Alchemists always I picked the wrong profession. Because I'm a scribe, and when I became a scribe, I was making buku bucks, because people always needed glyphs. Now it's only minor glyphs, so oh no, it makes no money. It's the most soul sucking profession ever.
But yeah, so there are some new things coming with legendaries in 7.2 besides these crafted ones. What we learned, so it's probably good we didn't have a show last week, because every week there's been a different legendary improvement that gets scrapped the next week.
Yeah.
But the current setup is that there are these tokens, which are called relinquish tokens, that will allow you to target a legendary for a specific slot.
Yeah, this was
what you
really
do is you buy,
to me.
So you buy the token on the Broken Shore for nether shards.
Yeah.
We don't know the cost yet. It guarantees just sort of a random generic, piece of gear, kind of Timeless Isle style, or Baleful from Tanan.
Yeah.
But the interesting part is that there is a chance for a legendary for that token slot.
Yeah, which is really cool.
So people are oh, yeah, similar to Diablo style. And just to clarify things.
Oh my gosh, if this is anything like Kadala, yes, it will cause rage and salt. Oh my god, Kadala. My worst nightmare. Sorry, I'm done.
To clarify things, there was a scrapped idea, which I believe we've talked about in the past. There were these items called unidentified legendary tokens. They were marked as bind on account, and it was you click on them and you would discover a legendary. So that idea is now scrapped, and in place of that, we have the spec-specific bad luck protection, as well as the relinquished items, letting you target the slot you want. And I believe it works for loot specialization as well. So you could be targeting ones for a slot that is like, you know, you could be holy and
you
trying to discover
shadow or whatever. Yeah. That's interesting.
So yeah, big legendary news.
Yeah. I'm still very on the fence about crafted legendaries. I just feel like, number one, as a scribe, I'm sure there won't be one for me to make. Like, I'm sure, you know, because they're going to be leather and cloth and so whatever. So it's like, I
tailoring,
feel like,
blacksmithing, leatherworking.
Yeah, I kind of feel like my profession got gypped in that. And then also I feel like they shouldn't be good. I feel like they should be bad because that's how crafted gear is. Crafted gear is always bottom of the barrel.
They are kind of, because they aren't class specific. I mean, we learned what the procs are, and I'm trying to pull them up to read them. I'm not sure if we had the procs when we had the last builds, but let me see. So it was like, you know, the Shadow of Kalumbra reduces your damage taken by 5% and movement speed by 10%. Refuse and Session Courage, that's the plate one. When the enemies are within 8 yards of you, you heal for 2% of your maximum health. And when enemies aren't in range of you, your movement speed is increased by 15%. So these aren't like very, I don't know, they're sort of generic kind of utility things.
Yeah.
And their power just comes from, I mean, they have prismatic sockets, so they feel like they're good stat sticks, but their bonuses are not, like, they're not going to be game-changing ones because their procs are so generic. Because they have to work for multiple classes at once.
Yeah. Wait, so in other exciting news that's not related to legendaries, so we talked a little bit about in the last show about Paragon reputation, that you would be able to go past Exalted with all of the Broken Isles factions. And then we found out this week that every 20,000 reputation points that you earn beyond Exalted, you'll get a Paragon supply satchel. And those satchels have a chance to have mounts inside of them. So the High Mountain Elderhorn is from High Mountain, obviously. The Valahar Stormwing, which is the Storm Drake we've been looking at for a very long time, is from Stormheim. The Cloudwing Hippogriff is from the Court of Ferrandis. This is super pretty. The Wild Dream Runner, which is the neon green unicorn, is from the Dreamweaver cache. And finally, the Lay Woven Flying Carpet is from the Nightfallen cache. And I thought this was going to be a tailoring mount, so that was surprising.
Yeah, so many people did.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be a tailoring mount, but it makes sense as a Nightfallen mount as well.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the unicorn because the armored versions are only from PvP, and we've just seen these really pretty unicorns in Azuna and Valkyra. As well as the Storm Dragon, because currently the armored Storm Dragons are only from PvP, and people have, you know, like, oh, you know, please, can Nithog have a Storm Dragon, or, you know, can I buy one? How can I get one? I'm not a gladiator quality. And
well, not only that, but I actually tend to prefer the non-armored versions of mounts.
Yeah. I like how the unicorn is very pretty in pastel, because all the PvP ones look kind of mean and very, you know, armored and angry. So.
Yeah, well, in addition to that, too, I mean, we had a lot of cool new models come up, but there was all this stuff for a Hearthstone tavern. So there were all these models that came up of, obviously we saw the pet a couple weeks ago, but there was also these animated Hearthstone cards and Hearthstone game boards for both Horde and Alliance, as well as a zone. So what do you think that's all about?
So I have a few ideas. So the first is that we've been hearing about Year of the Mammoth a lot. You know, that's the new Hearthstone season where they, like, wrote, you know, cards out of, you know, standard and put them into wild. And I wonder if this will be some sort of cute little promotional thing where it's like, oh, Year of the Mammoth has started in Hearthstone, you know, like, head to the Hearthstone Tavern and, you know, play a few games. It's like, you know, a fun little game arcade area. So
do you know what I think it is?
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's a micro holiday.
I was going to say it could be maybe like a Kirin Tor tavern crawl, because it is a tavern.
Yeah.
And they did delay the Kirin Tor tavern crawl because of a mysterious bug.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
I think.
But you know what though? There's a pet. It can't be a micro holiday.
I mean, we
unless
don't
it's
know
not
if
a
it's
pet,
a
unless
pet
it's like just an NPC that like pats around.
Yeah. Yep, it could be that.
I've always thought it would be a really good idea, though, for them to have in, like, main cities, like, an area where you could play, like it back in when Shrine was the main area, there was the little area where you could sit down and there were Hearthstone boards. I always thought that it would be such a good integration to be able to go into WoW and play Hearthstone in WoW. Like, as dumb as that sounds.
No, that would be fun.
It would still leave you available.
There was an add-on that let you play. You could play Bejeweled, I thought, back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. And Peggle. Yeah. They had a couple different ones. And so, like, I feel like it's not a ridiculous request to have a mini game in the game, and I feel like they could do things where you had like a daily to go do your Hearthstone thing, and then it's just more users and conversions for them.
That reminded me, we had Bejeweled. That was we have the jewel crafting toy now, like that.
And the toy that does it. So, thank you so much for subscribing. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what's going to come of that. I really thought that the Hearthstone pet was going to be for shamans. Which I know is kind of a ridiculous thought, but I think of elementals as being a shaman thing. And then I also think of having, like, an extra Hearthstone because of Astral Recall to be kind of a shaman thing. So, like, a little Hearthstone elemental pet seemed very shaman to me, but that's probably just because I wanted it and I play a shaman. So, in the past couple of weeks,
mounts,
we've gotten, I have a slideshow on Wowhead's Facebook and on my Facebook. I have a video that's all edited and it's like dubstep and fun. But for some reason, like I said, XSplit doesn't want my videos anymore. So I made a slideshow just for this stream that shows all of the class mounts because we have most of them data mined now at this point. I think we're still missing probably some variations on the monk and demon hunter, but I think
I haven't thought about that. I'm not sure if we're getting them, but
not sure if we're getting them. I would be surprised if they didn't do with everybody else getting alternate colors. I feel like people would be very upset.
The monk one talks to you, so I don't know if it's like the monk one talks. Like it has like voiceover lines, which we haven't shown yet. But so I wonder if like the monk one is super detailed, so you only get one.
I don't know.
But yeah, so in addition to that, we've been trying to preview all the quest lines on the PTR because they each have a cool interactive cinematic with your character. And once you do the quest line, you can learn how to get like other colors for your mount, or maybe some classes don't have them and you can buy a matching pet instead, all sorts of things. Yeah. So yeah, we've been trying to do the research to figure out like, you know, are demon hunters getting extra ones, or are they not because they can get Pepe as a toy and that's their cool thing? And one of the go ahead.
I just feels like I feel like all the spec ones and stuff are really special. I would be very bummed the monk mount is amazing, don't get me wrong, but I would be very bummed if I didn't get alternate variants and everybody else did.
Yeah, I want to explain some of the quest lines pretty quick, and then I have some notes on the how I think all the rewards are going to play out, like who gets the colors automatically and this. But so yeah, so the Death Knight one is this spoilery? I don't even know. Like it's not. Like we're talking about the patch, so I don't really think it's a spoiler, but I'll just say that it's a throwback to the Wrath cinematic and how it's set up, and the new Lich King has some kind of strange request for you, and there's a feat of strength where you have a choice between not killing things and killing things, and the feat of strength is to kill everything. So there's a lot of lore implications there. And so far, the Death Knight questline has been the most popular one that we've shared on our Facebook. And then the Paladin and Warlock quests were also fun because there was a lot of throwbacks to the class mounts. Like the same quest givers were present. They send you off to collect crafted materials. They have funny lines like the Paladin armorsmith is like, oh, I like armor that sparkles, so, find me a gem. And that's such a Paladin thing. Like, they like their sparkly, bright armor.
Yeah.
And, like, even the original NPCs are present. For example, the NPC for the Warlock, Dreadsteed, he's back on the Broken Shore, obviously, because he's a demon. And he drops one of the alternate mount colors for Warlocks in 7.2. Which brings me to the next point of just sort of figuring out, like, where are all these mount tints and other goodies from? Like you were just saying. So what I've learned so far is that some classes have the mount color change based on their spec. Yep. So Demon, Death Knight, Mage, Priest, Shaman, and Warrior. It's one color per spec. People are split on that because they're like, oh, but I really wanted this color on when I'm playing my Frost Death Knight, or, I want the Purple Priest mount on my Holy Priest, but it doesn't work that way for those classes. Yeah. So the mount matches your spec. Then some classes require you to unlock all the new artifact traits. So like not the 50-point infinite trait, but like 1 point into the infinite trait.
Yeah.
And once you do that, you can then purchase an item for the alternate colors. And Warlock has some colors, Paladin, Rogue, and Hunter. Then some classes have other rewards for unlocking traits which are not mounts, and that's Demon Hunter Pepe, the Monk Pet. Beastmaster hunters can tame feathermane birds like griffins and hippogriffs, and Death Knights have pets for each spec.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not sure if the demon hunters and monks are getting the alternate colors, because they have the unique toy and the unique pet. But we'll see. Blizzard has been adding some colors here and there, but currently they opened up all the quest lines for testing, and we haven't seen any way to get those other colors yet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost done going back through their slideshow. It's on Rogues right now, so I'm going to let it finish up so everybody can get a second view of everything, but I still have ethical dilemmas about the shaman mount. It just seems wrong to saddle up our elemental friends.
We actually
seems wrong.
We highlighted the shaman one today on Wowhead, actually, and people were split about it for a few reasons. The first was that the quest is kind of straightforward compared to the other classes. It's not really as exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing was that Blizzard has been swapping around the colors for each spec, and people have been debating in the comments like, what is the right color for the spec? Fire is currently for elemental, but I believe fire was for enhancement last build.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, I want storm, I want fire. Wait, water looks the same as storm. I can't tell these two specs apart. So that's what I've been seeing as far as feedback.
Yeah, thank you so much for the 100 cheer. I don't really know what that means. I'm new to this. I just got it all set up with us last week, so I don't know what that means, but thanks for doing it.
Thank you for giving us stuff.
Yeah, thank you for the stuff. I just feel like everything I've ever learned about being a shaman has told me that we ask the elements for help. We don't tell them what to do. We don't control them, and it just feels wrong to put a saddle on them.
So I think what it is so you go to Prince Thunderon, and he's like, yo, those people, those 3 lords from Conclave of Wind are not believing me to be the true heir to the throne. So you have to go in there and subdue them.
Yeah.
And then I think the mounts are meant to represent each of the elemental lords, which you had to convince, to be peaceful and, not fight with each other or, undermine, Prince Thunderon.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, this one looks like Rohash, this one looks like Nazir, this one is Anshal. I know not a lot of people were raiding in Cataclysm, especially Conclave of Wind, because all the loot was, random stats. Yeah. But it does make a little more sense once you do the quest line and you're like, each elemental lord kind of resembles the map.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and
it still feels a bit, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I don't think I have a problem with the colors of the mount. I mean, obviously, I would think that the elemental would get the flamey one because their big damage is flame shock, and the enhancement. I feel like I see the windy stuff. I don't know. As a shaman, I feel okay with that. I still. I don't know.
I think the idea is that the elements are giving you a piece of themselves. Thank you for not having us fight with each other. We will give you a token of our appreciation.
Yeah, that seems like they're just a little too sentient for me to be comfortable with it. I don't know. They're too close to being. It's like Gronlings. I also have a problem with Gronlings as mounts. They're just too close to
I guess I can see that.
It's I saw a show once where they talked about, it was a magical land where, they would set traps for their food, to hunt, but the traps contained a riddle, because if you were smart enough to understand the riddle, they didn't want to eat someone that was as smart as them. So I feel like we're in that sort of situation where, they're too close to being my friend. I don't know. Let's move on. On live servers, There has been some changes as well. Nighthold Wing 3 LFR is out, so now you can do Croesus, Tichondrius, and Elisande. The loot starts at 860 and can proc up to 925. And also keep in mind that Croesus is needed for the Falcosaur quest mount. I think it's the Bloodgazer.
Yep. that is the fourth one. 2 were from Emerald Nightmare. 1 would require the first Nighthold boss, and now we're on to the fourth one.
Yep, so if you're working on that, that's something you can do now. As far as other stuff, there's been some stuff changes to Mythic Plus, correct? Or was that, did I skip actually, Mythic Plus from 7.2? I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can cover that next week. Basically,
let's zoom back.
We covered some of the things about, like, the Maw of Souls, artifact power changing, and then, like, more rewards in the weekly cache. Mm-hmm. They're changing around some of the different abilities you can get every week, but, yeah, that part's missing from the notes. We can get back to it next week.
Okay.
Yeah, we can just keep talking about live stuff like the Primal Flame Saber promotion.
Perfect. So in other news, the Primal Flame Saber promotion is now live. It runs through March 14th. This is a Heroes of the Storm promotion, and if you play 15 games of Heroes of the Storm on a Warcraft hero with a friend in your party, you will earn the Flame Saber, the Primal Flame Saber mount in World of Warcraft, as well as the Flaming Judgment mount in Heroes of the Storm, and a stim pack. AI games do count, and what's really nice about this is that when you play the tutorial of Heroes of the Storm, at the end of it, you get to choose between 3 Warcraft heroes. So everybody owns a Warcraft hero and doesn't have to pay any money to do that, and there's always free heroes from all the different franchises in the rotation. So if you have not started this yet, I would definitely start it because it's a cool mount, and I think it's one of those things where right now you're going to see a bunch of people using it. It's not going to be very cool, but in like a year or two, when people have long forgotten about this promotion, you're going to look really awesome on your Primal Flame Saber mount.
It also doesn't take a ton of time to do. No. I knocked it out in maybe a few hours with a friend on AI mode.
If you do it on AI, it's forgiving. Really quick. We've been playing it on Quick Match, so it takes a little longer, but I don't know. It's fun. I like Heroes of the Storm. I actually have a lot of like strong feelings about, if you are a Blizzard fan, why Heroes of the Storm is the best MOBA for you. And I feel like at a very base level, I go into other games and I just have no idea what some of the heroes do unless you've spent a lot of time researching them, whereas Blizzard sort of rewards you for knowing their games. And like you go in and you see Jaina, and you might not 100% know what she does, but she's a mage. That's what she does. I'm gonna sneeze.
Yeah, cross things. Bless you.
But I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of, it's much more intuitive, and it's the type of game that you can pick up once in a while, and it doesn't feel so intense as some other MOBAs do. But then again, it's very much like WoW in that like it's easier to pick up, but it's much harder to master. That's all I got for you. Also, in live server mount type news, the archaeology mount, the Spirit of Ikero, is available now. He is available to get until Tuesday, and you just pick up the quest in Dalaran. You get like 600 bone fragments while you're doing archaeology in High Mountain, and then you'll be rewarded with this mount. He's very, very cool. I got him because I was sick and I couldn't like sit upright, so I did this laying on the couch on my laptop, and it didn't take too long, a few hours. It actually was much quicker than I thought it was going to be for such a good reward. So if you have archaeology and you haven't done that yet, I would definitely recommend doing it because it's a super cool mount, and it's only
and it won't be around for a few months. Like it's rotating for the achievement this side up, and there are a lot of solves that are up for 2 weeks each. So if you miss it now, it will not be around. Like this is maybe the first or second time it's been up since
I think it's the first time it's been up since the expand. Yeah, I don't think it's been up before. We knew about it, but I don't think you could get it before. But I guess I could be wrong. But I've never seen anybody with it in game, and now you see it all over the place. So, in other news, there was a World of Warcraft Q&A today with Ian Hazakostas.
Yeah, so we covered some of the things he clarified related to the PTR, such as artifact power and legendaries, but there were a few topics that didn't really fit into the PTR that we just wanted to cover here. First is that, sadly, balance of power will not be moved to account-wide in the future. Blizzard did make the Emerald Nightmare drops easier to get, which they felt was the big blocker, but they will keep it in mind because they do realize it's a really long quest line. And they tried to explain that
the Emerald Nightmare portion of that. FYI, like I'm so.
They were. Oh no!
I made.
They were trying to explain that like
video.
It's.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I was talking about 7.2 in a video, and I was like, I don't understand why Khadgar didn't help us. Like, where did he come from? Why is Illidan here? What's going on? And everybody's like, clearly you're behind on balance of power. And I was like, I am. How'd you know? And that's the whole storyline that I missed. But that's all. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. Well, I did mean to interrupt, but I'm sorry about it.
So Blizzard was like, this was tied to like an awesome piece of gear, like we would do something about this, but stuff like Balance of Power. It's a long quest line, but it's just for an ultimate cosmetic reward. And they're like, we think it's okay if you're doing some long, elaborate, lore-filled thing to get something which doesn't directly, impact your power.
Yeah.
So that's what they said. They said, like if it becomes an issue in the future, they'll look at it, but they think it's in an okay place right now. And I guess the same thing could be said for like Insurrection and getting the map from Gul'dan, how it's not tied to an awesome piece of loot, it's just tied to getting a cool mount, so it's okay if it, you need to quest a lot.
Yeah.
There were a few, I'm going to just scramble this around and talk about the factual stuff and the more opinion stuff. And a few weeks ago, Blizzard adjusted Nighthold DPS trinkets, and they said they also took a look at tank trinkets, but decided not to go ahead with changes because they felt that the trinkets were decent, but some players weren't using some of the Nighthold ones because they prefer passive stat sticks for like health, strength, and mastery. But like they felt that the other Nighthold trinkets were not inherently bad within themselves. They did say that perhaps a change in the future was to ensure that a trinket where you have to like click on it and use it would be like clearly awesome and great for your performance if you knew how to use them, just like how active talents require more management and attention, but they give you the best performance when used correctly. But no Nighthold tank trinkets changing. And they finally said that the unstable Arcano Crystal is still OP, even with the secondary stat changes. And it was kind of an accident because usually when Blizzard makes a trinket that doesn't have primary stats, people view it as bad. So they purposely gave this trinket a lot of secondary stats. Yeah. And the way things worked out, it's too many. And now Blizzard's like, well, do we nerf this trinket and make everyone with it feel bad? Or do we like buff every other trinket of the game? Or why don't we just wait for 7.2 when, we have tomb trinkets and other trinkets that are just naturally at a high item level and are better. So, but they realized that is an issue, and, Wither Gym Week is kind of, stressful in the lottery for many people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
I muted. I had to cough.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. No, so this next part was, so the Blizzard was talking about Mythic burnout, and they addressed some of the concerns up above, like, artifact power, but they also had, Ian specifically was like, I know you had hot water for saying this, but he had the take that the community was partially a little at fault for always trying to turn things into an arms race that has unsustainable requirements such as, tons of alt runs or, high AP requirements or lots of prep that doesn't have to deal with skill. And he was specifically like, Legion shouldn't have to be played 80 hours a week. Yeah. He tried to clarify that. He tried to clarify that and say that he was sympathetic to some things such as the AP grind, forcing some people to think that they had to like reach the, obtainable goal at the end. But he was like, why can't you guys just, do a race based on skill? Like, why does everyone have to kill themselves with artifact power? Yeah. So I found it interesting because usually we get pretty cut and dry responses in these Q&As, and he was putting his opinion out there a bit.
Yeah.
And I see both sides of it. Especially because the raid guides are popular on Wowhead, and we do have an audience of players that wants to research everything and share everything, and a lot of those players are big fans of the site. And I think that, having a mindset of wanting to do everything possible is healthy in a lot of situations. And the messaging, as we said before, could have been better on Blizzard's end for the early part of Legion, especially how they were slow to react to quality of life changes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this is exciting too. So the Chronicle Volume 2 is finally coming out.
Yeah.
And we got a little bit of
a sneak peek.
What would be the word that we're looking for? We got a little bit of a preview of it this week.
Yeah.
And
I also, before we put the slideshow up, I also have a copy sent to me. We're doing a giveaway mid-March for this. I emailed asking if I could read some of this in advance, and I haven't heard back yet, so I'm not going to, make people angry. But if we can, I'm going to try to read, like, a page a week or something similar to what we did with Volume 1. But here's the book. It looks cool. It's got Gul'dan on the front.
Yeah.
And you can pre-order it on Amazon.
You can. It's been available to pre-order for a while, but there are some art previews on Wowhead. I'm not going to show them all here, but this is just an example of one of the art previews that you can see on Wowhead. I think there's 3 or 4 total, but go check those out.
Yeah, IGN has a few more.
If you are interested in. Yeah, I think there's more. I just, the slideshow didn't import
sorry,
for whatever
my
reason.
lighting.
Yeah, I don't know. The sun is really screwing up your life right now. It's dark here already, so...
We had this really bad storm and trees fell down, so we have no tree blocking some of the sun right now. So
it's just doing whatever it feels like. And that's what's going on. So wait, let's talk a little bit about Pepe's birthday. Is something going on with Pepe right now?
Oh yeah, so Sass has been running a giveaway in chat throughout this show. I feel bad talking about Pepe with this lighting blob. But basically, Pepe is 4 years old today.
Yes, he is.
Jordan Powers is the creator of Pepe, and while he was at Full Sail University, he was working on art, and he made a Facebook post saying, "This building looked boring, so I put this little bird on it. You know, his name is Pepe, and he is a boss." And that was the start of Pepe, and then Pepe, came with him to Blizzard, and then was used in, Warlords of Draenor, and Jeremy Fiesel decided that Pepe wouldn't just be a prop, he would be a bird that would sit on people's heads. And then Pepe became a toy with a costume, and now Pepe is taking over the world.
Yes.
So because today is his 4th birthday, Sass was doing a giveaway in chat for people that were watching so they could get their own Pepe.
Yes. So wait, backing up a little bit, you know what I love is that Blizzard injects so much of the people who work on WoW into the game. Like, Pepe wasn't something that they're like, okay, you need to develop this bird, it's going to do the thing. I mean, that was something that was, Jordan drew that before he ever even came to Blizzard, and it was an idea he had before he ever even worked for Blizzard. He was still a student at Full Sail, and, when he brought it and showed people, they were like, oh my gosh, let's put this in WoW, this is awesome. And I love how many little things in WoW are just very much people's kind of side little passion projects. I love how much of the community is in the game, and I think Pepe is a really great example of that.
Yeah, Pepe is also fun from a marketing perspective because, Warlord was all like Savage and Spikes, and people are like, oh, Pepe, you're so cute.
Bird.
You're the best part of Warlords, I remember you the most, and it's just totally not expected, and Pepe is winning over everyone's hearts.
Did you check your email? I did the signed photos for St. Jude a couple weeks ago, and I need to check.
I
did little doodles for everybody, and I totally drew you a picture of Pepe, like on yours.
Let's see.
It was. I think it's to your personal email, the one that starts with an F.
Yep.
It's F the Horde at horde.com. I'm kidding. That's not our email. I just made that up. It was like the cutest little Pepe that I drew. Do we know who won that yet?
Yeah.
Who won the Pepe?
Let's see. I think Sass is going to pick it in a few minutes. Oh no, where is it? Pepe, sit here. I talk to the Pepes a lot. Like,
she does.
I know people see pictures of Pepes on Twitter, but they have little conversations with each other.
Oh yeah, no, it's really cute. They have lived different.
Oh wait, I found it.
Do you see it?
Oh my god, it's so cute.
Isn't it cute? Aww. I did that one just for you. I thought you would like it.
That's so cute.
It's like a scribbly doodle of Pepe.
It's so cute.
Freenon and Babelino would be really proud of my progress on digital drawing.
He's so cute.
I thought you would love that. Oh, you're welcome. So while Sass is figuring out who won the Pepe, let's talk a little bit about merchandise. Of course, as usual, we have a code for the Blizzard Gear Shop. It's Wowhead15, and that'll get you 15% off all Warcraft products. Thank you so much to Blizzard for providing that to Wowhead's audience. We really appreciate that. And 15% off of Warcraft stuff is a pretty hefty discount, and it's definitely targeted to the stuff that you guys want to buy. And what's really nice about that is if you're in the U.S. and you buy the Wild Bangerang leggings from from the Blizzard Gear Shop, you will get that 15% off as well. So there's all the new designs of Doombringer, Kirin Tor, Maiev, Sylvanas, Illidari, Xavius, and Illidan. I own the Kirin Tor ones and the Sylvanas ones. I wore the Kirin Tor ones when I was at Full Sail last week, and I've never been complimented so much. And I wear crazy leggings all the time. And I mean, people were stopping me to ask me where I got the Kirin Tor leggings from. They are so pretty in person. I like love them so much. So
yeah,
if you
I got the Illidari ones and the Illidan ones, and I actually bought a dress to match.
Oh, the Illidari ones are sick. I almost got the Illidari ones. Yeah. I got the Sylvanas ones because I didn't get because they did another version of Sylvanas before she became queen, and these ones
I'm actually wearing them right now.
Yeah, you have those. I don't have those though, so I got the new Sylvanas ones, and then I got the Kirin Tor ones. But yeah, they're awesome. So if you were planning on getting those, definitely utilize that discount code while you still can. You have until the end of the month, and that's code Wowhead15 for 15% off all Warcraft products. So thank you again, Blizzard, for providing. And that does include Pepe.
Yeah, because Pepe is a Warcraft item.
He's the Warcraft item. There we go. So yeah. And then while we wait for Sass to find out the winner of the Pepe so we can announce that, do we have any questions from our audience?
Yep. Let's see. Someone is asking about the archaeology quest, and just go to the Wowhead page. It will tell you what you need to know with the comments.
The archeology quest for the mount is super easy though. You just pick it up in Dalaran, and then you go to High Mountain, and you turn it in and pick up another one, and then you just go out and
they were just saying that something wasn't visible, so it might be a bug. So I would just check the Wowhead page.
My red boxes weren't working. If that's what they're talking about, like the blobs that kind of show on my map, they weren't working. So just look for the shovels, and then once you actually enter the zone, the red will show up if that's what's happening to you.
Yep. Someone else was asking if unobtainable achievements could be obtained as part of the time walking system in the future. Do you think that's a good idea?
No.
What is your opinion?
No, I don't think that's a good idea.
I think that would make it too competitive, especially I'm not sure which are unattainable ones outside of Realm First, and you wouldn't want that to be, obtainable again.
Well, I think maybe they're talking about things like ahead of the curve, maybe. I don't know. But I think anything that has been made into Legacy, it should stay
keep it cosmetic and fun. Yeah. This is actually worth mentioning. Last week we did a cooking show with Lulaboo, and we did a follow-up giveaway for the Warcraft cookbook in which we asked people to list what their favorite food was. And the show was really fun, and we'll be doing another show on March 2nd. And it reminded me because this person's question was asking us what is both of your favorite in-game foods, such as diamond berries. So,
my sister did her entire Thanksgiving dinner this year from the Warcraft cookbook. So, like, as far as stuff I got to try, it was was it sour goat milk cheese? Is that what it's called? Sour goat cheese?
Yeah.
Oh, delicious. It was so good. She made homemade cheese, and it was delicious. Everything from the Warcraft cookbook was really good, though. We had the jungle vine punch, too, and it was good. Everything was good.
Yeah, I was going to say that, so for the first recipe, we cooked a bloodberry tart because we thought it made sense with, Valentine's Day that week. But a lot of the drinks are always really fun, and I'd say my favorite food vendor in-game is the, exotic goods Suramar vendor, as well as the souvenir ones that have Shaldora ice cream and gummy worms. I always think all that stuff is really fun. Just how there's a vendor and it doesn't sell anything needed for stats, but it sells something that is just really cute for the area.
Yeah, in game I really like the foods that you can see, like the cake that you put down or the feast that you put down. I like food that you can set out and you can see it. But as far as what I've tried out of the Warcraft cookbook, everything was good. I'm not kidding. She made every single thing from the Warcraft cookbook, and it was all phenomenally good. It was all good.
Yeah. So I have a winner. Those are all the questions, by the way.
Yay! Who's the winner?
I feel like the sun is just moving around.
It is. Yeah, it's getting wrecked.
I don't know what to do. The Pepe winner is Kara Sudar K Hammer. So
perfect.
That's on
easily pronounceable name.
And we'd like to do more of these little giveaways on the show in the future because we did a giveaway on the cooking show and it was really spontaneous and fun, and we like when people show up and watch us.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. stay
Absolutely.
tuned. We want to do more. And we've also done a few on our Discord in the past few days, so you can, it's not on a regular schedule, and we want people to chat and, be interactive on our Discord, but, just keep an eye out, and there might be some things here and there you can get.
Absolutely. So, well, that's about it for this week's show, guys. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. If you happen to be watching this on a VOD, or maybe you showed up late, we do stream every Friday. We start around 6:15 Eastern Time, 3:15 p.m. Pacific Time, but we always upload the VOD to YouTube the following, it's usually in the evening, and then it's up on Wowhead the following morning. But thank you so much to everybody who watches us live here on Twitch. And now this week we did it on Facebook, and I think it went pretty well. So thank you so much, guys, for joining us on these platforms. We really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to spend a few hours with us and talk about World of Warcraft. It's always fun for us. Thank you to all of our subscribers and followers. Thank you so much for the cheer, even though I still don't fully know what that means. I know it's good.
We will research that for next week.
We're going to look into that.
Yeah,
and thank you so much to Jordan Powers for creating Pepe. Happy birthday, Pepe. And congratulations, Jordan, on kind of creating an evil monster, if you will. Be sure to follow us here on Twitch as well as Facebook and our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Wowhead. Thank you so much to all of our subscribers and to our subscribers for Wowhead Premium, which, if you are not aware, is a monthly subscription to Wowhead that will remove all of the advertising, and it'll allow you to customize your today it'll allow you to customize your today on the Broken Isles. I almost said Draenor. And it'll also give you a special color when you talk on the forums. It'll allow you to track quests. There's all sorts of perks. It's only $9 a year or $1 per month. So thank you so much to everybody who does that. It directly supports our content, and it frees up ad space for you guys, which is always great. We are going to go, but we'll see you next week, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.
Sorry about the sun.
Bye. Bye.